Hey there, men. Happy Truck Talk Thursday to you. Welcome to the Wolfe and Iron podcast and to my truck, in a sense. Glad to have you guys here. Glad to be talking to you. I never know how these intros are going to go. I literally just get on the road and start talking to you with a rough idea of what I'm going to be talking about. Listen, if you're new here, I want to say welcome to you. This is the Wolfe and Iron podcast, and this is a Truck Talk Thursday episode. These come out on Thursday, so it's appropriately named. And it is in addition to our podcast episodes where we interview guys of different industries, ideas, all kinds of manly stuff taking place here on the Wolfe and Iron podcast to help you guys grow, help me grow as well. I grow tremendously, not only just through talking to the guests that we have on the podcast, but also the preparation for the guest. You know, I'm usually reading their book, or I'm checking out their blog, listening to their podcast, something like that. But also the relationships that come afterwards. And I can't tell you guys just how important relationships with high caliber people in your life are to your growth and your development as a man. I've been reading a lot about attachment styles, digging into my own attachment styles. If you guys aren't familiar with these things, they're really fascinating. I'm not planning on talking about them in this episode, but I'll probably do it in another one. Essentially, there are three different attachment styles. There's the secure attachment, which most people don't have. And this is you relate to other people, you love them, you're kind of, you're good to kind of meet their needs and have them meet your needs, but you're not overly dependent upon them, that kind of stuff. Then there's the more common kind of attachment styles, I think, and that would either be anxious or avoidant. And the anxious attachment style is, I just don't know if you're really if you're really into me, or if you love me, or if you get me. And this can be a guy or a gal can have this, but I would say it's probably more likely to be on the lady side. And then there's the avoidant attachment style, and that is the lone wolf. That's the person who's, I don't need anybody else. I got this. I can do these things on my own. I don't want to get too involved intimately. I don't want to feel like I'm getting sucked into people's world and drama and needs and all this other kind of stuff. I operate better when I'm just kind of managing my own emotions and have my own world in check. And I would be on I think I'm secure avoidant, if that's a thing. So I'm a little bit more of on the avoidant side, but I've become more secure. But as I read about these things, I realize just how important it is that we have there's this tension. So the reason they're called attachment styles is because there's this tension. We still want to attach with people. We want to have this connection with people. And so having a connection with people is so important in our growth, even though we sometimes feel like, as guys, that we want to avoid the drama of relationships and those kinds of things. So that was a little bit of an aside, but you'll hear more about that maybe in another episode coming up. This time I want to talk about curiosity and just how important it is. I don't know, I would imagine that it's something that happens just as we get older. Our brains, they want to be correct. They want to be right in what they think. And we tend, as men, to go down a path of achieving certainty. Achieving this sort of sense of, I've got it figured out. I know the right way. I know how to make the right call. And we kind of do this by listening to podcasts, such as this one. Listening to maybe audio books, reading books. And then, of course, through life's experiences. And it's as if we've been taught that there's some kind of value in a rigidity. And I think there's a kind of a dynamic, maybe a paradox here that we need to embrace. And it is that we can have a secure foundation that embraces curiosity. Okay? We don't have to have a rigid structure that to keep ourselves from being shaken, to be unmovable, to be more secure in who we are and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be rigid. Our principles need to be founded. They need to be well grounded, but even those ought to remain curious. And we can still be grounded in them because we're like, these are the things that we hold to when all else fails. Principles such as, I'm a child of God. I believe in doing good to other people. I believe in honesty and integrity. I believe in the value of hard work. I believe in facing my fears, those kinds of things. Whatever your principles happen to be, those things get tested over time, but you still want to leave them open, and not necessarily because they could be wrong, although it's possible, but because if you keep them too rigid, you can't take in new information, you can't build them up, and you can't connect them to other principles and other guiding things that kind of actually shore them up, make them stronger. I've achieved more in my life, not to say that I've achieved a lot yet, but I've achieved more in my life through curiosity than I ever did through certainty, and certainly more than I ever did through cynicism. And the two, I think, are pretty closely related, certainty and cynicism. And so curiosity is the greater of the three. When we try to go down this path of being certain, we become rigid in our thinking and unmovable. And sometimes that can feel like, more manly. It kind of sounds more manly to say it. But it typically leads to a type of cynicism, because we begin to say to ourselves, if I can figure this stuff out, and if I've got this thing down pat, why is everybody else all screwed up? Why are they, you imagine the old guy. I imagine Clint Eastwood here when I think about this. I forget the name of the movies that he was in that he did this, but where he's the old guy, this is the way it is, it's not going to change, and that kind of stuff. I imagine that sort of rigid cynicism kind of setting in. I don't want to be that way, and I imagine no man sets out to say I want to be a cynical old man when I grow up. Nobody wants to be that way either. So how do we avoid that? Well, we've got to be curious. And I think that if you're on the path of learning, you're curious, right? So if you're listening to podcasts, one of the things that and reading books and doing things like I talked about a second ago, if you're doing these things, it's not because you're trying to get to a place of absolute certainty, because that will lead eventually to cynicism. You're trying to get to a place of understanding, and you're doing it for the sake of learning, for the sake of building yourself up. And it actually helps to increase your curiosity. Whenever I read a book, listen to a book, I come away thinking, oh my gosh, like if I learned something from this, a lot of times it'll be a topic where I already thought I knew something. If I learned something from this book, imagine how much more there is that I don't know. And there's probably a lot. And so it actually increases my desire to learn more, and increases my desire to gain more knowledge. It increases my curiosity about things. And I can actually see this expressed not just in my learning, not just in my business, but even in my relationships. So let's take an example here. Let's say that your kid comes at you with something. They're pretty animated. They're aggravated about something. And instead of reaching into your adult brain and saying, well, I have the answer, and the answer is you're stupid and you're a child, and you won't even worry about this crap in 15 years, which, is a valid answer. I mean, as adults, we know this. But, practicing curiosity there and saying something like, tell me more about that. And not just a, kind of a put on, you're not just trying to patronize them. Is it patronize or patronize? I don't know. Which one is it? You're not just trying to, patronize them. You're actually asking. Because just like when you open up a book, maybe on a subject that you know something about, you know that there are things to learn. And there's a really good chance that your kid is going to express something to you that either you already knew, but it wasn't at top of mind, or you wouldn't have expressed it exactly the same way they did. And it's going to give you some insight. But that curiosity is going to help deflate that situation. Tell me more about why you feel that way. Now, with teenagers, obviously this could go a couple of different ways. You're not really in it because you know there's going to be an exact outcome. If you remember being a teenager, you could have been like, I don't want to talk about it. Stop bugging me, that kind of stuff, right? It's payback. That's what it is. But, you do this with your wife, it's a different story. You go to her and you say, tell me more about why you're feeling that way. Help me understand what you're saying. Instead of going right into fix-it mode, right? Remain curious, remain open. This is also really helpful in your business and in your career. being curious. The intern that comes in, they've been there for all of 2 days, and they start to have some ideas. And a lot of guys would want to shut them down and say, well, you got to earn your stripes, and then maybe we'll listen to what you got to say after like 2 months or something like that. Just give me some coffee. But you want to be open to these things, guys. You want to be curious. Tell me more about that. What do you see? Why does that seem like a big deal to you, right? Asking questions. And if you can maintain this mindset of curiosity about things, I want to understand somebody. I want to understand myself. I want to understand the world around me. I believe that there's a perspective here that I don't fully understand or know. Is going to open doors for you. You're going to be able to see things in an innovative way that other people don't see. Because most people move towards rigidity, move towards certainty. And our brains, on the one sense, they want to be accurate. They want to have the information that they have, and that's least path of resistance. There's the least effort there, least expenditure of energy, and they don't want to take in new information after a certain point. This is what happens. They get old, they get lazy, they get tired, they get worn out. And this is where most people go. Most men that are going to be somewhere in that area. But if you can remain open, if you can remain curious about things, it's going to set you apart. And it's going to make a tremendous difference in your relationships, in your own personal growth, in the growth of your business, or the growth of your career. You're going to stand out, and you're going to achieve far more than you ever would have through certainty or cynicism. All right, guys, love to hear your thoughts on this. We've got a fantastic group of men over at the Wolfe and Iron Facebook community. If you go to wolfeandiron.com/the group, you can head over there, check it out, request membership. We don't let everybody in. That's one of the things that makes it such a good group, actually. We keep a lot of the riffraff out and turn away more guys than we let in. And so answer the questions. If you don't see questions, reach out to me on social media or something like that. I'll help you through it. But I want to see you over there, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. How do you remain curious? How do you avoid cynicism? What are you doing to kind of keep the mind going and keep it healthy and exercised and just remain open-minded while also holding on to your principles? All right, guys. I'll talk to you later.